Since its launch in 2005, Broad Street Review has sought to promote the exchange of viewpoints rather than any particular point of view. To that end, we welcome commentary from professionals and amateurs alike about the performing and visual arts, as well as any other field of interest to our eclectic group of contributors. The following interview was submitted to Broad Street Review, powered by Rep Radio.
All right. I'm here in the green room at Studio X, Theatre Exile, and I'm here with Deb Block. Deb, welcome back to Rep Radio.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
So we're here on a beautiful summer day in October. Hashtag global warming. But we're here to talk about this amazing season that you have lined up. And first off, congratulations on 13 Barrymore nominations for last season.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I personally had so much to say about Smoke and The Invisible Hand. And so I'm so glad that the rest of the community understood that too, and there was so much there to talk about, and it was just amazing for an organization to bring those to our eyes here in Philadelphia. So thank you, because I definitely some of the moments that really stood out for me is like sitting in the audience for Smoke and observing the audience respond to what's going on stage, and then the conversation I had with myself, because I think I went to that one by myself. The conversation I had with myself on my walk home, and I was just like, oh my God, yeah. And the same thing with Invisible Hand. It was just that conversation. It's just like, oh, these vicious circles that we're in, and sometimes we need effective storytelling to kind of remind us that how far ahead we're moving, or if we're moving the needle at all. And so the work you produced last season really shone a light on that.
Thank you. I mean, that's really what we try to do, to tease out these stories. And one of the things that we look at, what makes an Exile play, is how the story resolves or doesn't resolve. Yeah. There's usually not a neat ending to a Theatre Exile play because it's exploring really complex issues, and there aren't neat endings. The ending has to come on that walk home, on how you think about it. Does that help illuminate issues that you see in the world, in your life? And then how do you deal with it? There are very few right and wrong answers out there. There are choices that we make based on the information we have and our understanding of the world and the situation. So I think both of those plays specifically illuminated issues rather than told us how to resolve them.
Yeah. The one thing I also thought was great is that 2 of the 13 nominations were for Best Direction, for you and for Matt Pfeiffer. And I was wondering if there's any sort of directing tips from Deb that you could give, because what you're doing over here is so amazing and so perfect. So what sort of what is some of the thought process in your direction? How do you approach the work?
I mean, in general, we try to bring out the truth of the play, and not to pull back on the truth, and that's really difficult. So deciding to do Smoke was the biggest challenge, not necessarily showing it. Of course, it was a difficult play to do, but really the decision to do it was hard, because we wanted to make sure it was not so bold and daring in its storytelling that the story would be lost, because it was pretty bold, pretty daring, the subject matter and how it was presented on stage, and how the playwright pushes us with that. And so I think with every play you do, you just want to bring out the truth of the play and make sure the story is being told. And we are so intimate in Studio X with the audience, and not to try and make things easy for the audience, because Theatre Exile has fabulous audience. I love our audience. Our audience is smart and adventurous, and I'm more likely to be reprimanded if we don't push them. They expect that.
Yeah.
And so know your audience is smart and ready to be engaged, and for me it's more of, am I ready to stand up to that call?
Yeah.
Rather than try to pull something back because you anticipate something might be too.
And it's great because they don't necessarily have to love every choice that you make in order to experience it. So, they will still come to the show
Right.
and tell you that they're not happy with this show.
And they did. I mean, I think one of my favorite experiences on this show after the show was up, after Smoke was up, was in the lobby. I had a tried and true major supporter of us run out of the theater in the middle of the show and say, "Deborah, why have you put me through this?" And first of all, that she knew my name and was ready to have that conversation with me right there in the lobby with all of her emotion and all of the truth, and that we were able to have a real good conversation about the subject in the play and why it was what it was. And she came back to our next show, and she's a supporter, but for her, that's when the play ended, but the conversation began. It wasn't at the end of the play. Of course, I would have liked her to stay all the way through, but she stayed for what she needed to, but had the conversation.
Yeah.
And that was so important. And we did that particular evening. There was an awesome lobby conversation afterwards with people that loved the play, people that were deterred by it, people that were crying and felt transformed, all these things because the play is so daring.
Yeah.
And so you asked for directing tips. Direct the show. Be truthful. Don't hold back. I had awesome actors who were game.
Yeah.
They knew the play. I mean, we had discussions about the play before they accepted it because they had to be willing to go there, and they were.
Yeah. Somebody's trying to chime in on our interview.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's like it seems like in the past. What we thought was taking a risk was putting nudity in the show.
Right.
But now it's like, we're actually going to challenge these societal norms, and we're going to actually question positions. Not that we weren't always trying to do that, but there were options. There were thoughts of maybe we should play that a little bit on the safe side.
Right. Well, one of the things that made that play so challenging and daring is that it didn't necessarily try to figure out how to fix the problem. It strictly illuminated it. And it was based on Miss Julie by Strindberg, and just like the original, the metaphorical blood was on the floor.
Yeah.
That one said, if you're going to address class issues, this is what you're going to get. People are going to die. People are going to be destroyed. That's what you're going to get when you try to face this.
Yeah.
And that similar things happened in Smoke because it didn't resolve it and say how to make it better. It said, this is a look behind the curtain as to what's happening.
Yeah.
And
there's also moments that speak to some of the commentary that's been going on with this election, with some of the things that were said by some of the candidates.
Oh, absolutely.
And the position that that women are often put in with men of power.
Yes.
So there was this whole power conversation there. But in this piece, you could argue that the woman in this role had the control from the very beginning. And that's what I took from it.
Right.
But it was interesting that on the surface, there were many people who thought in the conversation that she was taken advantage of in that moment.
Right.
And I didn't see that because there were just some subtle moments. Just the ask for a cigarette. And how it wraps up at the end was like, wait a minute.
Right.
Ooh.
She did go. She was exploring something, but was it healthy? Was she behaving from strength? Was she behaving from weakness? But she, and certainly within the world of it was very specific that the play did not take place in the SMBD party. It took
Yeah.
place in the kitchen. And it's very important for me that people understood that that the play was not actually in that world, because that world has a much healthier set of rules.
Yeah.
But people get attracted to that world, that some people do, that are working through issues that they need to. This play took place in the kitchen.
Yeah.
She needed to work through some stuff, and it's also very specific that she's 20 years old. She is between 18 and 21 in that no man's land of what is an adult.
Yeah.
She by some standards, not an adult yet.
So she's on like multiple fringes.
Right.
She's on the fringe of this community, of this particular event. She's on the fringe of becoming an adult.
Right.
And making those choices. There's just too many lines. It was just
there's too many lines. Was she aware of certain choices she was making? We did believe that she was, but was she in a place to make those choices in a healthy way? He's 31 years old. He knew what he was. He was giving alcohol to a minor. He was was he? So it flipped back and forth. It was an incredibly complex play in terms of that.
Yeah. So now let's transition into the 20th anniversary season.
Yay!
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
We have quite a few companies celebrating their 20th anniversary. So was there anything different in the process of planning for your 20th season? What was the planning process like?
Well, we asked ourselves a lot of questions. We asked ourselves, do we want to go back to some of the older plays that we've done before and sort of illuminate where we came from? Do we want to have a mix of things? And we decided that we wanted to find the best plays on who we are now. The way to celebrate that we're in our 20th year, to say this is who we are right now.
Express your evolution.
Right. We decided in the past years we had done some shows, as I call off campus, which is out of Studio X, and some shows in. This year we decided to do all 3 shows here in our home and say this is the best of who we are. We do contemporary work that has import, that raises issues of our time. And that's what we wanted to do in an intimate setting, in an intimate conversation.
And plus, now that you've found your stride in Studio X, it seems like you have a lot more freedom and flexibility in building the set too, because you there are some spots where you can look at maybe you could stand to have a little bit more room, but in terms of the ability to build a space from beginning.
That's true. We know this space very well. We understand it really well, and we love it, and we know how to use it. And it's been exciting. We've been working with designers who find the secrets of this space. And so it's been very exciting because there are challenges in every space, and this is not a theater space at all.
Oh, wow. Oh, I did hear that.
Okay.
But we don't have to talk about it.
Okay. I just thought I'd...
But at least you know what you want now.
Yes.
You've had a space, you have a space where you can make it whatever you want it to be, so that allows you to walk into any space.
That's right.
With a different sense of like what your capabilities are.
Right. Intimacy.
Yeah.
We understand intimacy, and I believe we're doing plays that want to evoke a conversation. And you talked about before this, like, how do you remain relevant? You find the playwrights that are writing about your time in a way, even if it takes place in another time, that it's resonant, and then you have those intimate conversations, and the conversations continue after the play is over, sometimes with us, sometimes at dinner, sometimes at the bar, sometimes a month later. And because they sink into you, and and that's what we want, so that sense of intimacy, and that's what we know we need to create.
So we're gonna skip the Fringe production for a second.
Tommy.
And we're gonna talk about the upcoming piece,
Yes.
Guards at the Taj,
Yay.
and by Rajiv Joseph. And what I had noticed when I saw that is I was thinking while while your mission is to show that grit that is Philadelphia, you are thinking globally in the choices that you bring to the stage.
Yes.
And this is one of those as well. So tell us about Guards at the Taj.
Guards at the Taj is a beautiful play, I believe. It's beautiful, it's scary, it's funny, it's the whole range of emotions, and it takes place the day that the Taj Mahal is being revealed. So 16 years after it started construction, and it focuses in on two of the guards that are in front of it. And there's a story that is told. It's told as history. Some people believe it's myth. Some people believe it's metaphor. That when the Shah Jahan, who had the Taj built, he was so amazed by the building, he never wanted anything as beautiful to be created again, so he had the hands of all the workers severed. And to me, that speaks of the fear that is in some people's hearts, and that fear is not a... Fear promotes it squashes beauty, basically. Fear kills beauty. And we live in a society right now where there is so much fear around us that we're encouraged to make fear-based decisions, fear our neighbors, fear the people that are different from us. And I'm shocked that we're passing through this time again. There's always going to be a little fear, and fear is part of who we are. It's part of our DNA. It's part of our evolution, how we've grown. But I had thought that we were in a place where we were making, as a society, less fear-based decisions. And I understand Philadelphia can be a little bit of a bubble. And I understand I live in a little bit of a bubble, but I felt that we're moving away from that, but that's not entirely true. I feel like a lot of the discussions right now are based out of fear. And what makes this play so timely is that it illuminates the idea of fear will kill the beauty in the world.
Yeah. And I think right now it's not cut and dry, this decision we have to make in November.
Oh, no, it's not.
I mean, you could say, yeah, but how could you think that it's not cut and dry? But there is, I must say that there is a little bit of fear in the choice that we make right now.
Absolutely.
Because we have too many things. There's too many things on both sides to consider now, where before it did seem, yeah, well, I'm gonna stay with my team on this, but now things aren't necessarily as the lines aren't necessarily
on
as
both
perfect.
sides. One side looking, I'm afraid of what happens if I elect that other person. I'm afraid of. I am afraid, so therefore I will go to this place. There's so much fear percolating as opposed to making decisions from a place of strength. Just in general, it's not there right now, and it is a very difficult thing in life. I feel like at times to be able to discern the difference between prudence and fear. It can get very close. They snuggle up right next to each other at times.
Yeah.
But if you can tease out what is fearful and what is prudence, then I think it would make the world a better place. How to work from strength. So even though this play takes place in the 1600s, it's very timely of the questions that it's asking. There's metaphor laced all through it in the characters and in the backstory that's there in terms of the creation of the Taj Mahal and the decisions that the two characters go through in order to try to have, both of them want to have the best life.
Yeah.
And they're brothers and they love each other. They're like brothers. They're friends that call each other brother. And they want the best for each other. And sometimes those desires are at odds with one another.
This brings up a question I've brought up in previous interviews. Do you think, it seems like now because of social media and the accessibility of technology, that we just have so much more information. Do you think that we're better off with all of this knowledge, or was a little bit of ignorance a little bit better for us? In the thought of, there's a part of me that feels like I would have made a common sense decision if I didn't know all of the facts. And I feel like now that I know so much information, there's just too much to sort through, and I'm more so undecided. Whereas I'm thinking like me 5 or 10 years ago, I would have said, well, it just doesn't seem like that would make sense.
Ignorance is bliss and knowledge is power.
Yeah.
So what is better? I personally think knowledge is the better way to go. But if I look historically, as a country, were we happier in ignorance? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Were our leaders probably able to lead from strength with a little bit of shield between them? Probably. They have to navigate things today that our leaders never had to navigate because they were given the protection by the media as opposed to being exposed by the media. I don't know what the past, what our today would be if that veil was uncovered sooner. Who knows what the Camelot of Kennedy would have been if that protection wasn't there. I have no idea. But I suspect the world might be a little bit different if they didn't have that protection. Good, bad, that's a bigger question. So I can't answer that, although I do believe that ultimately people make emotional decisions when they're voting, because we're voting with our hearts. And hopefully the questions are asked first, and then you have to go with what your gut is. After that, I feel like everyone is doing that. And I think it's a very tricky situation. There's all sorts of studies that suggest that our brain is only set to make would only wants a few choices. Yeah. It doesn't want endless amount of choices. They have all those studies done with people going into the supermarket and what makes them good shoppers and all these marketing things when you limit the choices. I actually had a conversation with my mother one time because my perception of my youth when I was in high school was that my mother gave me the choice of where I went to high school, because I actually switched high schools. And she asked me, and she clarified when I was a young adult, she goes, no, you weren't given whatever choice you want. I gave you 2 choices. And I was like, oh, right. She only gave me 2 choices. Yeah. My perception of it was, wow, I get to choose where I go, not I get to choose between these 2 things. Yeah. And it was a slightly different view of the world, but to me at that age, 2 choices was, whoa.
Yeah. Well, in marketing, they'll give you 3 choices in the hope that you will take the middle choice.
Right.
To find the happy medium.
Right.
Which is always...
Well, maybe that bodes for us having a 3-party system instead of our 2-party system.
Yeah. So thinking about the title of this piece, I was reading the description and I was saying, so are we going to see the Taj Mahal? Which makes me think about the production design. So tell us a little bit about the production in terms of how you're going to bring the elements of 1648 to life.
Well, actually, as written, you see the reflection of the experience off the characters. So you will see the space transform. There will be magic there. You'll see transformation, but we're not going to try and represent the full Taj Mahal because it would look dinky. You want an experience. That's really what it was. Is the first time you see something that steps outside of their understanding. Yeah. And it's more than what it would have been, more than what pictures would have lent you to believe that it was. Like, your experience is always a different experience. There's a wonderful vehicle that the playwright writes into this. These 2 guys, they're constantly bantering, and they come up with inventions. And one of the guys comes up with an invention that's essentially a modern-day airplane. But it's talked about in a way from a perspective of someone who has no idea what that is.
Yeah.
And when you shift perception of something that is common for us but is full of wonder for something else, it's exciting. We all know what the Taj Mahal looks like, but for them it was an experience of something new, majestic. That experience could never be replicated with the actual Taj Mahal.
Yeah. So why add guards at the Taj to the top of the season?
I really do believe it talks about, and maybe in a very cogent way, the idea of fear and what it does to us as a society and as a people, and how it can close us off. And both of the other plays that we're doing as part of our subscription series deal with fear. People who've made fear-based decisions, people who were fearful and tried to do the right thing, but at what cost? They may have made the right decision, but there are costs at it. And people who tried not to be fearful, but in truth are, and if they're honest with themselves, have to say, I want to be a person that's not fearful, but I am. And so fear is navigated through all of the plays. And like I said, I think it's not an accident. I wasn't looking for that theme. Mm-hmm. That theme rose to the top of the plays that we were looking at because I think it's so present in our society right now.
So that's a good segue into the rest of the season. So not that we're rushing guards at the Taj out the door, because right now we're not even in rehearsals. I mean, we're in rehearsals, but we're not in. Are we in tech yet?
We just finished tech. We're in dress rehearsals.
Okay,
right
so
now.
We're in dress right now. By the time you listen to this, you'll be able to buy your tickets and go
That's
to the
right.
show that night, hopefully.
That night.
That
Listen to
night.
that evening.
Specific night.
Let's go.
So
wait.
So talk about what else we can expect from the rest of the season, which is all Philadelphia premieres, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All Philadelphia premieres. Lost Girls by John Pollono is a wonderful show about a multi-generational family of women that have ended up raising their own kids, being single mom plight, and really people trying to make it and trying to figure out how to do best for their families. And it takes place in the middle of a snowstorm, and it'll be in the middle of the winter when we do it. We have a lovely cast, huge cast for Theatre Exile of 6 with 4 strong women on stage, and it is about that place that I talked about before, where prudence and fear are dancing around each other, and main characters try to make decisions that are best for their family. But like I said, some of them are motivated by fear, and it may have actually been the best decision, but sometimes things are lost for that.
And what were your thoughts when you first read that piece?
Well, actually, I saw it first. I happened to see it in New York and loved it. I loved the piece. And Joe Canuso did the same thing. He saw it and it's like, we have to do this, right? And so it's a stretch for us just because of that many people in Studio X is a real thing, but it was a moving play that really illuminates issues that happen right now. How do you make it? If you're a single mom trying to do best for your family, want to have love in your life, and sometimes love is not enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to figure out what gets sacrificed.
Yeah, it's about finding the balance.
Right.
That's sort of the metaphor for life in general.
Yeah, it is. It really, and it tells that sometimes we get lost in order to make the right decision. And and that's what it talks about in a really great way. At times funny, at times moving, at times scary. It's a great story.
So that's our midwinter offering.
That's correct.
And so when we get into late spring with Buzzer, so tell us about that.
Buzzer, Tracey Scott Wilson, excellent play as well. And also it deals with people who wanting to be their best selves. It takes place in a up-and-coming neighborhood, going to be gentrified, not quite gentrified yet. One of the main characters grew up in that neighborhood and was very excited to move back, wanted to be ahead of the curve, brought his girlfriend along with it, and it's really about addressing who you are versus who you want to be. And sometimes it's hard to be your best self.
Yeah. Definitely a conversation that we'll have back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
And there was a piece that was presented in the Fringe.
Yes.
And that was Tommy and Me. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It was in the Fringe space, so it was at the Live Art space, and it happened in August. It was a world premiere, very, very exciting, by an extraordinary writer. His name is Ray Didinger. He's in the Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame, as a writer, and he's nationally recognized as a sports writer. And he had this story to tell, and he worked with a local playwright, Bruce Graham, to help him translate this story into play form, which he did. And like I said, Ray's an extraordinary writer, and with Bruce's guidance of structure, and Joe Canuso as the director, created this wonderful story of hero worship, of how one good deed begets other good deeds. It was incredibly heartwarming. I knew the story and still welled up each time I saw it. It is Ray's story. When he was a young boy, Tommy McDonald, who Eagles fans will know is really, he was the receiver that helped us win the last time we won a championship. And he was Ray Dinger's boyhood idol. And Tommy McDonald opened himself up to Ray and in spring training, and they had a nice relationship, but as a little kid to his hero. And years later, Ray was in a position to try to help him get into the Football Hall of Fame. And it was about their relationship, and like I said, how good deeds create other good deeds, and kindness begets kindness.
And I assume their reception was positive, but were there any sort of specific conversations that came out of that?
Yeah, well, it was very positive, and people left with full hearts. And what was, I think, the nicest thing for Ray is we had talkbacks every night. We brought different people in, and it was great. Every time, whether they said it at the talkback or they said it to me afterwards, they said, I'm not a sports fan, but I love this story because it was a human story. And it was one of the reasons it was an Exile play, because it transcended the situation itself and has a lesson in there that's a guide for living. Good deeds beget good deeds.
Cool. So we'll go back up to the top to Guards at the Taj, and the question I always ask is, what do you hope an audience will take away from this production?
Well, I hope they have a wonderful time. I hope they're engaged with the characters, but I hope they start teasing out this notion of fear versus beauty. And it's in there, and how we can sometimes, with the best of intentions, make decisions that have devastating consequences. And how do we put ourselves in that? When do we take responsibility and when don't we? That's a question that comes up. Do you take ownership for these deeds, or was it just your job? And how do you dance around that? Because in a lot of little ways in everyday life, it's like, wow, I really have to do this. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. At what point do we stop and say, I actually really don't have to do this, but are you willing to deal with the consequences?
Yeah.
So that's what I hope the conversation is.
So I'm kind of going to put you on the spot for
Excellent.
this one.
Excellent.
So given the current climate,
Yes.
can you think of two things that arts managers should be thinking about?
I think the current climate is... I think arts managers always need to be thinking of the current climate in general. And I always think artists have a responsibility to use their craft and their skills and their artistry to help direct a conversation to make the world a better place. If I'm going to actually speak how totally big weight from my heart, I think it's our job to make the world a better place. And it is our role as an artist to do that. So if you're asking the specifics of what we need to do, one of the things is find the issue of the time and illuminate it, shine a light on it. So there are so many issues of the time. And so thematically, I talked about fear and how it affects us and its ramifications. And as individuals, we need to spend time looking at our decisions and what's fear-based and what's not. I think that's really important, just any time that we should be looking at it, but especially important right now. But I could look at this season and also talk about gentrification, race relations, the women's role in society, friendship and betrayal, all of those things. But I suspect you're asking something maybe even more specific.
No, that's good. I've been bringing that up because I'm often impressed when a choice that was made months ago to be added to the season lines up almost in sync with the current conversation that's going on, and I think, like, how did they know that? Or are we just pulling the current conversation out of this experience?
I think there's a combination of things going on there. Playwrights are magic, right? So they're soaking in the world. And I feel like a lot of artists feel the reverberations early. Mm-hmm. They understand the rumblings and the conversations that are happening even before they turn into sound bites. It takes a while before something turns into a sound bite, and that can be talked about in pithy little phrases. And so the artists are already feeling those reverberations, writing it, thinking about it. But it is true that when gets to the stage where I am producing this play, I am going to bring out the conversations that feel most resonant. Someone else could direct Guards at the Taj at a different time and make it mean a little bit something different. Mm-hmm. I don't think so, but maybe, it's all possible that you bring out different things. So I think it's a combination of the important reverberations of the time, that artists are sensitive to it in a way early. I just think that that's what happens, but we also bring out what's current when it gets to this stage.
Yeah. So going back to the Barrymore nominations, mm-hmm. of the 13, was there one specifically that excited you more than the others, or unexpected? Which one stands out to you the most?
Well, they're all so exciting, and I feel like everyone should be, receive acknowledgement. I was thrilled that Invisible Hand got so many. But I will say, even though I was very proud of the production of Smoke, and I thought the actors were absolutely superb, I was really surprised that actually I was nominated as director, because I thought the play was really daring, and I'm really proud that it was, but I'm probably the most surprised by that one.
Well, it was your brilliant direction that had us squirming in our seats, mm-hmm. and like I said at the end of the show, we were all on stage in that last scene. So we all submitted at that moment, and that's how
yes, you did.
That's how I felt about it, and it was so intense, and to be able to convey that visually, audibly, and using all of our senses was just, a mind, bad word. And it was like, you can't just let this show end and we just clap and walk out of the theater. We have to sit there and go, oh my God, wow.
Yeah.
And just cook on it for a minute.
Right.
And that is good theater. And whenever that happens, I'm always just like, this
this one is just going, I can't be the only one who was moved by this. Right. And I know I'm not the only one that was moved by that.
Right. I had friends of mine come out after the show and were like, Deborah, I'm not going to talk to you right now. But, it's like because people needed to digest it.
Yeah.
There was a lot to digest, partially because the hopeful ending wasn't put on it. Mm-hmm. You said it's like the metaphorical blood was on the ground.
Yeah.
Or the real blood, depending on how you interpret it, was on the ground. And so that put a lot more of a burden on the audience at the end of the play.
And actually, given her age and her being on the fringe of so many things, you can almost call the entire production her origin story.
Yeah.
Because everything that happens after this, her life is forever changed for this moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is. But there are a lot of moments like that in people's lives. You could go back and say it was, when her parents, separate. It can be all sorts of, all sorts of things in there that brought her to this place. But you're absolutely right. Both of them were transformed at that moment. He was pushed to a place and did something. He did things that he said he wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And the playwright she came in with lovely conversations. There's a subtle difference. It's not a subtle difference. It's a huge difference, but it was presented in a play and that I don't think many people know. There were, there's a little slapping, little this, and he always checked in afterwards. He said, is that okay? Oh, yeah, it's all right. Mm-hmm. As opposed to doing things ahead of time. And so there's all sorts of things that these characters went through that they themselves both were instigators and victims of at any given time. It was really frighteningly well crafted.
Yeah. So at this point, as we are listening, we have opportunities. You still have time to get tickets for Guards at the Taj, which will be running through November 13th.
That's correct.
Here at Studio X. You can also get tickets to the Barrymore Awards and see these nominations become awards.
It is always an absolutely fun event, and it's very exciting.
Theater Nerd Prom.
It is the Theater Nerd Prom, but I love when I see the audience members there and the board members there, because it reminds us that none of this happens without all of us in the room. It can't be in existence without the audience. It can't be in existence without the boards. It can't be in existence because of how our whole society and community works together, or at least to say that's when it's at its best. Mm-hmm. And so that is really exciting when we get to all be together, because the truth is we have an awesome community here in Philadelphia. And I'd say we love each other, but it's a wonderful thing. But yes, you can come and see Guards at the Taj. It really is a lovely show. The two actors are doing such a superb job with an incredibly complex script.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do not miss this 20th anniversary season of Theatre Exile. You can find out more information by going to theatreexile.org, and that's theater, R-E, exile.org, and there's still time to you can still get a subscription, right?
You can still get a subscription. You can, our tickets range from $10 to $50 on opening night, and so if you want the cheaper tickets, call now. You can get those, and we'd love to have you. It really is a beautiful show, and the space is great, and it really does help transform your experience.
Definitely. # submit to exile.
Submit to exile.
Deb, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for expressing the season with us, recapping last season with us, and best of luck at the Barrymores.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see this production.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure.
This podcast is brought to you by Broad Street Review, the website where art and ideas meet. Since 2005, BroadStreetReview.com is the place knowledgeable Philadelphians turn for honest, independent, and passionate criticism and commentary about Philadelphia's dynamic arts scene. Join the conversation. It's free. You can reach Broad Street Review online at broadstreetreview.com. Follow us on Twitter at Broad Street Review and like us on Facebook. To show your support for this podcast and our Philadelphia area arts coverage, please go to broadstreetreview.com and click the button at the top of the page that says Contribute. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.